instructors were all off the New York Fire Department. So I learned quite a bit.
These guys were real pros.
Oh, from these guys.
Yeah.
And whenever we had a free moment, I asked him, I said, how in the hell do you fight fires in them big,
Tall buildings? Empire State Building.
And I learned quite a bit about how they fought fires in those buildings, but the school was mainly about shipboard type of fires, which they had construction there on the river of actual ships.
Yeah. Did you serve on a ship?
On the aircraft carrier.
What was the name of it?
Philippine Sea is the
Philippine Sea.
Yeah, the nickname was.
Was that one of them smaller carriers?
No, it was a large one.
Was it?
And the firefighting became very important because we just lost 2 big aircraft carriers in the Pacific.
Kamikazes?
Hit them, but they didn't have holes in them. They eventually sank because the firefighting wasn't adequate. And I learned quite a bit about, and the newer carriers had auxiliary pumping, gasoline motorized equipment for auxiliary backup, where when the Princeton sunk, it was because electricity went out and they didn't have water.
No pumps?
Didn't have no water, so they
couldn't fight.
They ended up blowing up and sinking.
How many men were on your carrier?
Well, the complement was like 4,000.
Oh my God!
But you had to have everybody aboard.
Yeah. I was always told one thing about the Navy: you was never too far away from your dinner table.
No, one of my best friends, and I made a habit of that wherever I was being a good friend of the cook.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys were colored guys.
Did they treat them pretty bad back then?
No, not.
But on the ship,
but they were limited to their duty,
yeah,
which was cooks and mess hall people, which I suppose they resented, not being able to do something else. But there was a colored cook that was received a medal at Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, it was shooting at the Japs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you came back to Lubbock. When did you get married?
My wife, I met her through my buddy, who was a mailman, because I wasn't all that forward with asking girls' dates.
You was backward, huh?
Yeah. So even in the Navy, the girls picked me up before I picked them. Where
I bet you were sharp, that little Navy suit. And how many buttons did it have on front? 13?
Something like that.
Yeah, 13 buttons and that little sailor hat?
Yeah, on the pants.
Okay, did you get tattoos while you was in the Navy?
No.
You didn't? Oh my gosh.
No, I seen a lot of tattoos.
Oh yeah, they get drunk, did they? They get a tattoo?
I seen some sick buddies that had a present girlfriend's name on his arm.
Oh my gosh.
And then he changed girlfriend.
Oh, how do you explain that, huh?
Which was
pretty embarrassing, huh?
Yeah.
So then you got out of the service, and then
I had a very big interest in engineering. When I was a senior in high school, there was a shortage of draftsmen in places here in Logansport, like
RPM.
Logan Machine, and
yeah.
I was sent down there, and for the first hour I didn't get paid. That was the same as classwork.
Yeah.
But if they kept me for 4 hours, then I got paid for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And
so you learned to trade, huh?
I learned to be a draftsman, which was making, a lot of engineers would scribble out something, and then I would make a
final drawing. Huh?
Yeah. And so draftsmen would eventually become like a junior type engineer.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I went to engineering school. I didn't graduate because this opportunity come up to get on the fire department, and I was tired of not having any money.
Yeah.
I was getting a little bit from the government for going to school, but it
GI Bill.
yeah, and I was lucky if it just paid the part of
Books
the
and everything.
yeah.
Wow.
But so I went on the fire department and met my wife.
And what was your first fire? Do you remember it?
First fire.
Yeah,
Well,
as a fireman.
yeah, and unfortunately, I was on the department about 7 days. Back end, the new man rode the back end
Of the fire truck?
of the fire truck.
That was out in the open, wasn't it?
They were all open cabs,
Oh my God.
and the officer would ride the seat, and then they still call him engineer. Drove and was a pump operator. The back end man would help catch a hydrant or pull off hose to enter a building. And the first building was right behind where I live here.
Really?
First home fire.
Oh my God.
And then an elderly woman died from the fire in her house, just right near here.
Well, can you remember the night of the Penny's fire? It was
Yes.
January 7th, 1966, and it was real cold.
Yes, and first of all, I'd like to say about how these fires spread in downtown Logansport. All these buildings had what they call a common wall. In other words, the wall separating one building or store from the other had the same wall.
There was no firewall.
No firewall. It was the wall was brick, so many bricks wide, but the floor joists were embedded in the same wall.
Oh, so that got weak.
And if the floor joist would burn out, it would also take part of that common wall out. And that left a big gap for the fire to go next door.
And it just spread.
Common walls.
It was pretty windy too, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Cold and windy.
Yeah. But the common walls are outlawed
now.
You cannot
Not
put
code.
up.
Not code.
You cannot put up a building with a common wall. But most of the buildings downtown, and there are a few still downtown that have a common wall. Which, like on Market Street, I think there's 3 buildings there in the 300 block that still have common wall. I'm very familiar with the one that used to be the harness shop. I spent a lot of time in there.
From what I've read, it was around 9:48 in the evening. Central Fire Station got a fire call from a phone, and there was a fire. And the fire station on the west side, Mr. Shanks was one of them. They said they was one of the first ones to come to the fire. Then, what time did you get to the fire?
Well, the first, we shouldn't forget the fire that was up on Broadway.
Oh yeah, tell us about the first fire.
All the trucks were up there. I'm not sure whether one of them was still in the station, but
yeah. That was called in 8 minutes before
number
the
4 was probably still in the station.
Yeah.
But this was a house they were going to demolish anyway for the new YMCA up on Broadway.
Yeah.
And they got alerted that there was fires at Penny's, and the number 3 truck stayed at the house fire, and the other 3 trucks, 4 answered from the south side, and 5. So there was 3 engines that answered to Penny's fire. I was off duty that night.
She was off duty?
And that night was a basketball game in Kokomo.
Yeah, Kokomo, Indiana.
And
Wildcats.
I took my wife and our kids to the ball game. And we were on our way home on 35, and I seen coming into to Main Street, the sky lit up.
Like glowing, huh?
And I thought, man,
What's
they got
that?
something going. So
It wasn't no victory bonfire, was it?
I probably missed the siren blowing
Uh-huh.
on the city building. They had a big loud siren that they blew like 10 o'clock for curfew,
Yeah.
but they would blow it a couple of times, any time of the day, to call in off-duty firefighters. So I know I didn't hear that,
Yeah.
but I knew they had something going. So I came home here on close to the Southside Fire Station, which is where we presently are, and automatically let the family out and went down to the fire station and got my bunker clothes.
Is that what you call them, bunker?
Yeah,
Your fire clothes?
fire clothes, and put on my boots and went over town. But I knew the glow was, I got to 3rd and Market, and here these Logansport fire trucks were in front of Penny's, and I couldn't figure out, well, the glow was further up.
Yeah. Oh, that was the other fire, huh?
So I parked the car and got out, and Harry Jones was one of our new chiefs, and I walked up to him and seen that a lot of smoke coming out of the Penny's fire, and I said, and I also noticed that the trucks were at the scene in front of Penny's, and the plans back in those days was you attack the fire with the smaller hoses. At the fire, you'd bring a line in, a 2.5-inch line from the hydrant, and then you take off 1.5 inches, or in the case of the Penny's fire, they took off 2.5. And when I asked Jones if you want to set up big, he knew what I meant.
A big fire.
The difference between a rifle and a cannon.
Yeah.
And it was a good idea to hit the fire with the rifles in the beginning and maybe put the fire out. But if it looked like you was going to have a lot more than what the rifles could stand, you better go to the cannons, which you had to put the truck back at the hydrant and take off 2.5, maybe 3, as much as 3 2.5-inch lines, and use them in what we called a deck gun or a deluge set. And we had a deluge set on the aerial. Not for the use of the aerial, but just to carry it to the fire, and we set it up in the middle.
Now, was that aerial truck something new for Logansport, or did they have one for a while?
The LaFrance aerial that they got and had ended up having the ladder broken down at the end of this Penny's fire was bought in 1941.
41.
Yeah, it was a LaFrance, like the 3 LaFrance pumper trucks that we had. It was a very good aerial at that point in time, and it had a nozzle you could put on the end of the aerial, and which they ended up using in the fire at Penny's. But there was none of the trucks were set up big. Number 5 was in the alley.
No.